Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with keywords that made headlines this week. U.S. President Donald Trump says he plans to impose 100% tariffs on semiconductor imports unless companies are manufacturing in the United States. Tensions are running high at South Korea's National Assembly, where rival parties remain locked in a standoff over a series of contentious reform bills. Opposition party lawmakers launched a formal filibuster standoff this week for the first time in about a year. South Korea has started to remove loudspeakers that blared anti-North Korea broadcasts along its border, seeking to ease tensions. The trade war triggered by the U.S. is far from over. President Donald Trump announced tariffs on semiconductors that are made outside of the United States. Amid concerns over the local chip industry, South Korea says it'll be treated as the most favored nation as promised. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump continues to ratchet up his tariff pressure, this time threatening to impose a 100% tariff on semiconductors coming into the United States.
We're going to be putting a very large tariff on chips and semiconductors. But the good news for companies like Apple is if you're building in the United States or have committed to build, without question committed to build in the United States, there will be no charge.
He was speaking at a White House event on Wednesday, where Apple promised to invest an additional $100 billion in the U.S., on top of the previously announced $500 billion. No specifics were given, though Trump did earlier signal that the levies on chips could come as soon as next week. With semiconductors being South Korea's second largest item exported to the U.S., Seoul's top office echoed remarks by Trade Minister Yo Han-gu that the country will not be treated less favorably than other nations.
Whether the levies be 100% or 200%, we have been promised the most favored nation status with regard to semiconductors and pharmaceuticals.
Last week, a framework trade deal was reached between Seoul and Washington that lowered the U.S. so-called reciprocal tariffs on South Korea to 15% in exchange for massive investment pledges by Seoul, as well as a promise for the most favored nation status on certain sector-specific tariffs. What lies ahead is how to fill in the details of the deal in time for the face-to-face meeting later this month at the top level, involving President Isangyong and his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics is to supply next-generation chips for Apple products from its production plant in the United States. Through a press release on Thursday, Apple stated that the foundry plant in Texas will supply chips that optimize power and performance for its products. Industry insiders say that the Korean tech giant is expected to produce image sensor chips for Apple's production line. This announcement came as President Trump announced that Apple is to make an additional $100 billion investment, a move to expand the company's domestic investment commitment. The South Korean government has been pushing to make the nation one of the top 3 global leaders in AI. One of the methods is by creating an AI model from scratch here in Korea with the help of local companies that are as good as the world leaders at the moment. The top 5 companies that will be backed by the government were announced this week. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
The South Korean government on Monday unveiled 5 AI creation teams to lead the country's push for AI sovereignty. Naver Cloud, Upstage, SK Telecom, NCAI, and LG Group's AI team will now enter a high-stakes competition to develop the proprietary AI foundation model project worth 200 billion won, or approximately $150 million.
The latest selection evaluated each team's technological capabilities and development experience, the scale of their development goals and strategies, as well as their potential impact, and plans to contribute to the broader AI ecosystem.
Initially, 15 entered the race, with the first round in July cutting down 5 to have 10 groups give presentations. The final 5, while big-name groups are teamed up with universities and other tech companies to form consortia. These 5 will now face a survival-style competition with phased evaluations every 6 months, ultimately narrowing down to just 2 final teams by 2027. The goal is to create domestic models that achieve at least 95% of the performance of the latest global AI models launched within the past 6 months. The project also emphasizes from-scratch capabilities, including model architecture design and pre-training from the ground up, not just adjusting existing form models. The initiative is part of President Lee Jae-myung's core pledge to build an AI for all society and realize Korea's ambition to become one of the world's top 3 AI powerhouses. The final 5 will now receive government backing, including access to high-performance GPUs. First, until mid-2026, private sector GPUs will be leased using 157.6 billion Korean won allotted from a recent supplementary budget. Later, the government will provide up to 8,000 GPUs per team from a pool of 10,000 units purchased by the government. Data support. Each team will also receive 10 billion won annually for data support, with an additional 3 to 5 billion won allocated for data construction and processing.
A bold new challenge begins. We believe in the strength of Korea's AI companies and institutions, and the government will stand with them every step of the way.
김도현, Arirang News.
The special counsel team looking into the actions of former First Lady Kim Gun-hee requested an arrest warrant with detention for her on Thursday, a day after questioning Kim over a series of allegations made against her. The team announced that it filed a request to the Seoul Central District Court. Reportedly, the request was made on the grounds that Kim had denied all the accusations and posed a risk of evidence tampering. The special counsel is investigating Kim on 16 charges, including stock manipulation and election interference. Meanwhile, the team also made a second attempt on Thursday to bring in former President Yoon Suk-yeol for questioning. However, the effort was halted due to his firm refusal and concerns over possible injury. South Korea's National Assembly kicked off its August extraordinary session this week amid intense political tensions, as the rival parties face off over key legislation following the first filibuster in a year. For more on the key legislation and what lies ahead throughout the August extraordinary session, we turn to our political correspondent, Hayoung. Welcome, Hayoung.
Thanks for having me, Eunji.
So, Hayoung, the July parliamentary session wrapped up with a series of filibusters, right?
You're right. During the July extraordinary session at the National Assembly, 5 contentious bills were at the center of heightened political tensions between the ruling and opposition parties. And these included 3 media reform bills aimed at changing how the heads of public broadcasters are appointed. And among them, an amendment to the Broadcasting Act, which affects KBS, was the first to be introduced during Monday's plenary session. And the ruling Democratic Party argues this will reduce political interference and promote independence in public broadcasting. Take a listen.
To boost press freedom and independence, the bill makes CEO appointments more transparent and democratic.
But the main opposition People Power Party strongly disagrees, saying the change could instead shift control toward liberal-leaning civic groups and further politicize media under the guise of reform. The party responded by launching a filibuster at the session to stall the DP's legislative push. Take a listen.
How is this a public broadcaster for the people? Does appointing someone of your choice truly make it a broadcaster for the people?
The 24-hour-long filibuster came to an end Tuesday afternoon after the DP passed a motion to close the debate. And the party then immediately pushed the bill through, with 178 lawmakers voting in favor and 2 against out of 180 votes cast amid a boycott by the PPP. And the second reform bill targeting another public broadcaster, MBC, was then introduced, prompting another filibuster by the PPP. That too was cut short at midnight as the July extraordinary session ended after just 7 hours.
Hayoung, aside from the ones you just mentioned, what are the remaining contentious bills?
Well, beyond the media reform bills, there are two other that lawmakers are divided on. And one of them is the so-called yellow envelope bill, which is essentially an amendment of labor union laws that limits employer action on striking union members. And another is a proposed revision to the Commercial Act that aims to strengthen corporate governance, transparency, and protect minority shareholders' rights, particularly within large corporations. And both are being championed by the DP, while the PPP remains staunchly opposed. And here's what they had to say on the yellow envelope bill.
By adjusting the balance in labor management relations, this will be the first step toward enabling dialogue at sites where subcontractors couldn't even speak to their main contractors, paving the way for voluntary horizontal cooperation.
The yellow envelope bill could encourage unlimited illegal strikes and has high potential to devastate industrial sites.
Then, Hayoung, will these bills come up again in the next extraordinary session? What's the game plan for each side?
Well, you're right. With the August extraordinary session now underway as of Wednesday, the DP is planning to push ahead with the remaining contentious bills. And as only one of the 5 contentious bills was put to a vote during the latest plenary session, the remaining 2 media reform bills, the yellow envelope bill and the revision to the Commercial Act, are expected to be addressed this time. A plenary session is scheduled for August 21st, and the PPP has already warned that it will launch filibusters against all remaining bills on the agenda if they are pushed forward without bipartisan agreement. And meanwhile, the DP appears to be adopting what's being called a salami slicing strategy, passing bills one by one to wear down resistance. And in short, such a cycle is likely to escalate the political standoff even further.
I see. And is there any potential for bipartisan cooperation that we can expect to happen throughout the August extraordinary session?
Well, the worsening tensions between the ruling and opposition parties are clear even outside the plenary session. The DP's newly elected leader Chung Cheong-le said that he is unable to work with the PPP, citing the continued presence of lawmakers who support former President Yoon Suk-yeol. And the PPP urged the DP leader to respect the opposition as a partner in governance, saying it was the only way to serve the people. And reflecting this divide, Chung met with leaders of 4 liberal opposition parties after his election, but did not meet with representatives from the People Power Party or the Reform Party. Given the current tensions, it may be too early to tell whether there's room for bipartisan cooperation, but it's definitely something to watch as the August extraordinary session unfolds.
All right, Hayoung, thank you for the wrap-up today. Do keep us posted.
Thank you.
Amidst Seoul's efforts to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula, South Korea's military announced it'll take down loudspeakers, through which it had broadcast anti-North Korea messages. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has the details.
South Korea's military decided to remove loudspeakers on Monday that were used for anti-Pyongyang broadcasts. The move comes amid the Isangyong administration's attempts to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula.
Our military has begun dismantling the loudspeakers directed toward North Korea, starting today. This is a practical measure aimed at easing tensions between the two Koreas, carried out within a scope that does not affect our military readiness.
Removing the loudspeakers comes less than 2 months after President Lee ordered the suspension of broadcasts in early June, an action also followed by North Korea afterwards. Around 20 fixed loudspeakers will be removed within 2 to 3 days, as mobile loudspeakers had already been taken away when the broadcasts were suspended. North Korea still has its loudspeakers in position, though they are not being used. Despite Seoul's proactive measure, one expert says Pyongyang is not going to consider that this is a major step towards opening up dialogue, as it is just a follow-up measure of physically getting rid of loudspeakers after the government promised to suspend broadcasts. However, he did say this was going to help the two Koreas build a bit more trust.
It's hard to say that this directly addresses the fundamental issues that North Korea is demanding. However, by taking actions as the South Korean government had stated, it could help build a bit more trust from Pyongyang toward Seoul.
Pyongyang is known to be demanding the end to ROK-US joint military exercises. However, this is unlikely to happen as the upcoming Ulchi Freedom Shield is expected to go ahead as originally planned as of Monday, according to the Defense Ministry. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea will temporarily allow visa-free entry for group tours from China starting September 29th, just ahead of China's week-long National Day holiday through June next year. The decision was made on this Wednesday during a government task force meeting on boosting tourism chaired by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok. The exemption will apply to groups of 3 or more Chinese nationals traveling with tour agencies designated by South Korea's Culture Ministry. Since last November, China has permitted South Korean nationals to enter without a visa for up to 30 days, a policy that is set to end this December. After 10 years with Tottenham Hotspur, South Korean national team captain Son Heung-min has now officially joined Los Angeles Football Club. LAFC supporters welcomed Sonny with loud and powerful cheers at his official LAFC signing press conference on Wednesday. His new club described him as one of the most talented and popular Asian players in football history, while Tottenham bid farewell with a front-page message on its website. Son Heung-min says he came to Los Angeles with one goal: to win.
Obviously, I'm here to perform, but also that I want to give some advice to the young players that for improvement. So yeah, I can't just wait to see all the teammates and all the players that working together. So that's why we are here. So let's do it together. Wins the trophy here.
It was also revealed this week that Son will wear the number 7 at his new club. Now set to play as LAFC's starting forward, Son said the presence of the world's largest Koreatown in Los Angeles was one reason he chose the team. According to ESPN, LAFC is paying a transfer fee of around $26 million, setting a new Major League Soccer record and surpassing the previous record of $22 million set by Atlanta United when they signed Emmanuel Latte-Lath earlier this year. Son also becomes one of the highest paid players in the MLS. South Korea has seen a summer of extremes with scorching heat waves followed by intense downpours. Experts say there's a reason behind this. Our Park Hyubin has the details.
This July was one of the hottest months on record in South Korea, but it was also one of the most devastating in terms of rainfall. According to a Korea Meteorological Administration report on Tuesday, the country's average temperature last month was 27.1 degrees Celsius, the second highest since precise records began in 1973. There were 14.5 days categorized as heat wave days with temperatures exceeding 33 degrees, the third highest on record. The extreme heat triggered a surge in heat-related illnesses. The emergency authorities responded to over 2,400 emergency calls related to heat stroke and other conditions in July, up more than 140% from the same time last year. Heavy rain has also battered parts of the country. Mid-July saw rainfall double the seasonal average, with over 240 millimeters falling nationwide, the fourth heaviest on record for that period. This extreme mix of heat and rain forced the government to activate both its heatwave and heavy rain Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters for the second year in a row. Since the task force was established in 2019, this is only the second time both systems have run simultaneously. Experts say there's a reason behind these extreme weather patterns.
This summer, a strong North Pacific high brought in hot, humid air, while another high from Tibet expanded overhead, trapping heat over the Korean peninsula. At the same time, cold air from the north clashed with this heat, creating intense rain clouds and heavy downpours lately.
The impact is already being felt. Last Sunday, over 140 millimeters of rain fell in an hour in Muan-gun County, Jeollanam-do Province, leaving one person dead and causing widespread flooding. And on Tuesday, most of the country still remains under heat advisories or warnings. Experts recommend staying hydrated and limiting outdoor activity during peak daytime heat.
To stay safe during heat waves, drink plenty of water regularly and avoid going outside during the hottest hours. It's better to go out in the early morning or evening.
With up to 120 millimeters of rain forecast for central regions on Wednesday, authorities are urging residents to stay alert and take precautions. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
Starting to emerge as a new business model from around 2020, unmanned stores are rapidly gaining ground across South Korea and have become more common in everyday life. Our economic correspondent Park Jun-an reports.
In South Korea, you can buy fresh fruit anytime, whether it's 4 a.m. or late at night. This store is a 24/7 fruit shop. What's even more interesting is that there's no one at the counter. You just simply pick up the fruit, bring it to the counter, then scan the barcode. After it's scanned, you can pay for it through a machine, and you're good to go. These two ice creams are exactly the same. Same size, same brand, same ingredients. I paid 1,500 won at a convenience store, but just 600 won at an unmanned store. That's less than half the price. Since a few years ago, South Korea's unmanned store businesses have grown rapidly. Although estimates vary by institution, it is generally assumed that there are over 10,000 unmanned stores in South Korea. From January 2020 through 2025, the number of unmanned stores grew 314%. The number of stores increased more than fourfold from 2020 to 2023 and has remained steady for the last 2 years. For customers, the main reasons they visit unmanned stores are their accessibility and reasonable prices. While increasing accessibility through operating 24 hours a day, the strategy of reducing fixed costs by building an automated system that does not require additional labor costs was the key know-how in selling products to consumers at lower prices.
It's cheaper than convenience stores, and I like that I can pay on my own without waiting.
Since it's open 24 hours, I can stop by anytime after studying near my academy, which I find really convenient.
Another customer said he doesn't feel pressured when buying at an unmanned store, since no one is watching him while he decides which product to choose.
With no staff around, you can shop freely without feeling watched. The prices are reasonable, so you get more for the same money.
Started as an emerging trend, unmanned stores have now expanded across the country and become a new mode of consumption. From ice cream to fruit and even pet supplies, the industry continues to diversify, meeting the evolving needs of consumers. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
It's been 80 years since Korea was finally liberated from Japanese colonial rule, which lasted 35 years, from 1910 to 1945. Our Pyeongyang was at an exhibition that highlighted one of the heroes who dedicated his life to fighting for Korea's independence.
This year marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule. To commemorate, a special exhibition is underway to spotlight the life and legacy of Isangyong, one of the leaders of the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea. Titled Prime Minister Isangyong and Im Cheong-gak, the exhibit also celebrates 100 years since its inauguration. After Japan's annexation of Korea in 1910, Lee gave up his fortune and relocated to Manchuria, China, with his entire family to escape colonial oppression and lay the foundations for armed resistance.
He focused on unifying the fragmented independence movement groups and also established the Shinung Military Academy, where he aimed to provide proper historical education to the cadets by writing the Daedong history and teaching them accurate accounts of Korea's past.
But Lee's story cannot be told without Im Cheong-gak, his ancestral home in Andong City. Im Cheong-gak is a 500-year-old hanok, or traditional Korean house, and one of the largest preserved residences from the Joseon dynasty. The home also produced no fewer than 10 recognized independence activists, including Lee's brothers, son, grandchildren, nephews, and even his uncle.
Im Cheong-gak is a historic site that shows how the sacrifices made for the nation will ultimately be honored and protected by the nation itself. Though it was damaged due to its role in the independence movement, the government is now fully committed to restoring it.
Isangyong was not only an independence fighter, but also a literary figure. Through essays, letters, and manifestos, he chronicled Korea's suffering and yearning for independence. These handwritten records in the exhibition are being featured as works of calligraphy.
A gifted poet and writer, Lee's literary contributions have been brought to light by the brushwork of master calligrapher Lee Dong-ik.
This exhibition was created to give visitors a chance to engage with the Seokju-yugo, a collection of Isangyong's writings. It's especially meaningful because it also features calligraphy works that reflect his passion and sacrifice for Korea's independence.
The exhibition can be enjoyed for free at the Seoul Museum of History until August 31st. Hyunyeong, Arirang News.
That is all we have for this edition of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.